Hey, welcome. In business and really in life, we're always up against these huge, high stakes choices. So, how do you make the best possible move when the pressure is really on? Well, today we're going to crack open a strategic playbook that's designed to do exactly that. It's called decision theory management. So, I want you to ask yourself this. When you make a big call, is it just a gamble, a roll of the dice? Or is it something more, a calculated risk? That question right there is at the heart of what we're talking about today. It's the difference between just guessing and actually having a real strategy. All right, to really get a feel for this, let's use an analogy. Imagine you're the captain of a cricket team. The match is on the line, it's a total nail biter. You wouldn't just send in your batters randomly, right? No way. Of course not. You'd be plotting your batting order, thinking about their strengths, the other team's weaknesses, and the probability of success. That kind of strategic thinking, that's exactly what this is all about, right? So, in the business world, that strategic game plan, it has a formal name. Let's dive into the playbook and figure out what decision theory management really is. So, at its core, this whole thing is a framework. It's not about some kind of magic crystal ball or just pure intuition. Nope. It's a systematic way to look at a problem by, analyzing all the possible outcomes, weighing the risks, and using logical models. It's really all about bringing some structure to what can often feel like total chaos. And what's really fascinating here is the big shift this whole idea represents. It's about moving away from relying only on that gut feeling. Look, intuition definitely has its place, but decision theory argues that the best decisions, the winning ones, are ultimately backed by data, by probabilities, and by some clear, logical reasoning. And this slide just lays it out so perfectly, how it works in practice. It's a super clear four-step process. First up, you've got to define the problem. Get super clear on what you're trying to solve. Step two, you identify all the possible ways you could go, all your alternatives. Then, third, you evaluate what could happen with each of those choices. And finally, you pick the best option based on that evaluation. See? It's simple, it's logical, and it's incredibly powerful. Now, this isn't just some abstract idea floating around. It actually comes with a really powerful set of tools to make it concrete. Think of things like decision trees, where you can literally map out every possible path and its consequences. Or payoff matrices. They let you build this simple table, kind of like a scoreboard, to compare your choices against different scenarios. And of course, cost-benefit analysis, where you weigh the pros and cons in actual numbers. These are the tools that turn the theory into a real practical strategy. Okay, so why bother with all this? Why go through all the trouble? What are the big scores you get from using this playbook? Let's take a look at how this structured approach really adds up to some serious advantages. So there are three massive benefits here. First, by actually analyzing the risks, you cut down on the uncertainty, which means you can make choices with a lot more confidence. Second, it really improves your consistency. A process driven by data is way less likely to get swayed by someone's personal bias or, office politics. And third, and this is a big one we'll get to, it promotes accountability. And that accountability point, it's huge. Because when you use a structured process, you have a clear reason, a rationale, for why a decision was made. You can't just shrug and say, well, it felt right. Instead, there's this logical trail that everyone can see and understand. No more hiding. But hey, just like any strategy in sports or in business, it's not foolproof. So we gotta talk about the potential challenges, or as our cricket captain might call them, the sticky wickets. And that brings us to a really critical question. Is this a perfect strategy? Well, the short answer is no. Every powerful tool has its limits, and it's absolutely crucial to understand what those are. So there are three main pitfalls you really need to be aware of. First, this whole system is completely dependent on the quality of your data. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Bad data means bad decisions. Second, these models can get incredibly complex, fast. And third, all this detailed analysis takes time. So it's really not ideal for those situations that need a snap judgment right now. And that whole idea of complexity? The source material we looked at had this absolutely brilliant way of describing it. Trying to model way too many variables is kind of like a spicy biryani recipe that's gone wild. You add too many ingredients and the whole thing can just turn into a big, confusing mess. Okay, so we've got the theory, the pros, and the cons. But how does this all play out in the real world? Let's step off the cricket pitch and into the world of profit and look at a real-world match. So let's take a look at an established Indian textile firm that's basically at a crossroads. The whole market is shifting online, and they have to decide, do they jump into e-commerce or not? I mean, this is a massive decision with millions of rupees on the line.
So instead of just guessing, they use the playbook. They create a simple payoff matrix, just like the one you see here, to clearly lay out their options. Look how it works. You've got the choices on one side: go it alone, partner up with someone, or just stay offline. And for each of those paths, they estimate the potential profit and identify the biggest risk. It's all right there on one page, a super clear comparison.
The key goal here isn't just to blindly follow the latest go digital trend. Nope. It's to systematically analyze the options and pick the strategy that offers the highest expected payoff. That means balancing those potential rewards against the very real risks. In short, it's all about strategy, not just hype. And that brings us to the final whistle. We've covered the theory, the good, the bad, and a real-world example. So now let's bring it all back to you.
So what's the big takeaway here? The crucial point is that decision theory management gives you a framework, a way to make smarter, more transparent, and more deliberate choices. It helps you turn what might be a wild gamble into a calculated risk, whether you're choosing a batting order on the cricket pitch or a huge strategy in the boardroom.
And that leaves us with one last question for you. The next time you're facing a really major decision, either at work or in your life, just take a moment. Instead of just going with your gut, ask yourself, what playbook are you going to use to make the absolute best choice?